Tonight, here in Kerr County, Texas, the number of victims missing grows. The death toll at more than 100, at least 30 of them children, while the number of missing surges to more than 170. A massive rescue effort underway, and people working to find loved ones like this father and his family in a frantic search for his son. Is there any hope that you're holding out that he may still be alive?
I think it's remote at this time that they're still alive, but we're right now, I would say, we are proceeding as if this is a recovery and not a rescue.
To experienced teams like the Cajun Navy, employing their full resources to locate victims. We're here on the ground with a community that's lost so much, still finding the strength to help each other. New questions arise over the state's flood warning system. Who got the alerts, who didn't, and why? And we ask, what can we do to protect ourselves at home? From the NOAA radio to emergency tools in your car. We'll talk to experts about how we can be prepared if disaster strikes. The Supreme Court clearing the way for the Trump administration to move forward with the firing of thousands of federal workers. The decision marks another victory for the president. This on the same day President Trump comes out with harsh words for Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying the U.S. is resuming weapons shipments to Ukraine. End of an era? News today that the TSA is phasing out its no-shoes policy for flyers at certain security checkpoints across the country. Is a national rollout on the way.
From ABC News, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Prime on the ground here in the flood zone in Texas. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We are here in Hill Country for a second night where 5 days after that powerful wall of water rushed through, the painstaking search for the missing continues. And all around us, we see instances of pain and fortitude hand in hand. In the face of unthinkable loss, residents are coming together to help each other. Volunteers mobilize quickly, many coping with their own losses, gathering much needed supplies. And volunteer rescue crews have descended to try to find the missing. We spent some time with the Cajun Navy this afternoon. The massive search involves heavy equipment sifting through the chaotic piles of debris. Tonight, the death toll from the 4th of July horror is at least 110, 30 of them children. Today, the Texas governor confirmed a grim number that 170 people still remain missing. At hard-hit Camp Mystic, where 27 campers and counselors were lost, pastel-colored trunks are now lined up after the muddy floodwaters were cleared from bunkhouses. There are countless stories here buried beneath the mud. We want to start with one family's grief, a dad just trying to find his son, all while helping others in the community trying to find closure as well.
You can set the girls up here and see if anything starts floating. You know, they can bring a chair and just look at the river.
His house, gone. His hope, not quite.
If you look over here, they have already cleared this debris field and have marked it with an X.
A mark on a tree has become the symbol of thinning hope here in Kerr County, Texas.
They are going to be tearing out that debris pile right there.
But Thad Hartfield remains determined, not for a miracle, but for an answer.
Yeah, I'm just doing what a parent would do. Nothing else matters right now than to take this effort to find, my son and these other kids.
His 22-year-old son, Aiden, and a few of his friends and girlfriend were staying at Thad's second home for the 4th of July. Now, a vacant space, known more for what's gone than what's left. What was this here?
Linsey, that was a fireplace into the interior of the house. On the backside was a riverside porch.
Is that pillow from the house? Did you recognize that?
That was from a camp upriver called Heart of the Hills, and all of the girls went to camp there.
Scattered shards of shattered lives, but the unforgiving floodwaters took something deeper when the water rose. His son, Aiden.
I got a call at 4 a.m. from my son, Aiden, and they woke up to 4 inches of water in the house, and I told them to immediately get to the highway. And so as he got to the back porch, the water immediately rose from 4 inches to 4 feet in a matter of 4 minutes. And Aiden was uncomfortable going through the rushing water, didn't think he'd make it. And something happened. His girlfriend Ella and the other girl Reese were losing their footing, and Aiden jumped in the water after them. They got swept away. Within less than a minute, the phone went dead. Do y'all need other excavators? I have access to 4.
Wearing the same clothes he's had on since the 4th.
2 teams working upriver for a mile and downriver for a mile. Okay? Got it. And so who do we have with this team?
Thad is at the forefront of his own son and others' rescue mission.
The house had deposited down the hill in 2 large piles. Yesterday we did find one of the kids in the pile, and one of the kids was found about half a mile down river. So we're still looking for Aiden and Ella.
Is there any hope that you're holding out that he may still be alive?
I think it's remote at this time that they're still alive, but right now I would say we are proceeding as if this is a recovery and not a rescue. My desire is to just not leave Aiden and Ella to the river if at all possible.
I have to say, you're so strong.
It's gonna crater. It's gonna crater. But he's my baby. Yeah.
The brutal floodwaters may have taken his home and his son, but not his resolve.
See that cluster of 3 trees? Nobody's checked that.
And in the face of near certain heartbreak,
I think he might still be alive, so you can try to find him.
Thad still manages to find compassion and love for others.
Don't go anywhere. I'll be right with you, okay?
He doesn't speak of despair, just of love and the weight of waiting.
I know every parent would want to brag about their kids, but he was a kind and gentle soul on this planet, and I think his spirit is being channeled to these volunteers that have come to our aid and to the community.
His backyard, now a field of loss, where silence is heavy, but a load this father will continue to carry until his son is found. Do you remember the last words you said to Aiden on the phone that night?
You wish you would have said, "I love you, son," but we were in get it done mode, and so I'm trying to get him to high ground, and that was the focus at the moment.
And as the search and recovery efforts continue here in Texas, local officials are facing growing questions over the warning system in the flood zone. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, has been following this story, pressing officials at a news conference here earlier. Hi, Matt.
Linsey, the question from the survivors, the family members, people at the local restaurant we had breakfast at this morning is, where was the county? How come they didn't get those emergency alerts on their phones, like those amber alerts that are blaring that would wake people up in the middle of the night? And today, at a press conference, we asked local officials that very question. Their answer, we don't actually know yet.
Tonight, with the death toll soaring, so is frustration over the handling of local emergency alert systems in the hours after a surging Guadalupe River made it clear a catastrophe was at hand.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button, okay? There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
I understand. So did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time.
This area is one of the most flash flood prone regions in the country. Nicknamed Flash Flood Alley, ABC News and our own stations learning local leaders spent years discussing a life-saving warning system, but never implemented one. Public meeting records show that as early as August 2016, the city of Kerrville spoke about the importance of a warning system, and by April, a local river authorities board unanimously authorized a contract worth up to $73,000 to develop a system. The status of that contract is unclear. And that is the strategy chosen by Kerrville's neighboring town of Comfort, Texas.
Every day at noon, that siren goes off, alerting people that the system is working. Now, if there were a flash flood here, that siren would sound steadily for 3 minutes straight.
Firefighter Danny Morales, who lost his grandfather in those same floodwaters in 1978, has spent the past several years working to get a new system installed, completed just months ago.
So you've been through these floods, and your job is to try to prevent people from experiencing what you had to go through.
I would hope so.
And Matt joins us now. Matt, lawmakers, and as we just saw, even Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick say that changes to the alert system have to be made here. What's the latest on that discussion?
You know, Linsey, I think there are two statistics that really struck me today. The first is what you just mentioned from the governor. Governor Abbott saying that there are over 170 or so, or about 170 people still missing and unaccounted for. The second fact that just blew my mind today came from Comfort, Texas, 15 miles downriver, where we spoke to those firefighters. And the fact that each one of those sirens that blare and alert people of a flood or a tornado or some other emergency, they cost between $20,000 and $50,000. And they say it was worth every penny. In fact, they're going to add a third one. Just gives you a sense of how inexpensive these systems are. And a city councilman in Ingram today telling us that they have talked about it in county sessions 19 times since 1987, but not once was it passed in Kerr County. They're still waiting for that. And as you mentioned, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says it's time for the state to start paying for it. Linsey.
Yeah, as you know, the debates have ensued. The legislation has been proposed, but no changes, at least yet. Matt Gutman, our thanks to you as always. Aside from sirens and cell phones, there are other ways to get warnings to people who might have mere minutes to escape a flash flood. For more on that, let's bring in ABC's chief meteorologist and chief climate correspondent, Ginger Z. And Ginger, you and I have been talking about the NOAA weather radio. Explain to our viewers what that is.
Yes, Linsey, for years, you'll hear me say, whether it's for tornadoes or flash floods or really any disaster, having two ways of getting warnings is imperative. A NOAA weather radio has to be one of them. I've got mine right here. It can be as small as this. They're often solar or hand cranked, but they are battery operated. I call these the smoke detectors of weather alerts. They do not depend on cell service because they're a radio, and they don't depend on power because they're battery and have other ways. So this will wake you out of a deep sleep. It will alarm you to the nearest weather alert and it will read it out loud. So in the case of the floods, for example, this NOAA weather radio would have woken them up and it would have read out, "This is a life-threatening situation. Get to higher ground now."
And Ginger, while we have you, I know that there's some much needed relief from the flood threat here in Texas, but now there's a severe weather watch for more than 50 million people from Virginia into the Northeast. What's the timeline on that?
Yeah, I actually had to be careful that we didn't do this earlier because my NOAA weather radio may have gone off. We've had tornado warnings in the state of New Jersey and also throughout this line. Severe thunderstorm watch from Greenwich, Connecticut, right through western Long Island into Delaware, all of New Jersey, Maryland, and parts of Virginia. That goes till 9 p.m. tonight. The main hazard is 70+ mile-per-hour winds. You could see some downbursts with this, but just like falling air basically that hits the ground and pushes out. Now, it's not just the wind, but the flood alert here. Flood watches from the mid-Atlantic through the Northeast, as you see that all in green. That's a 2-inch per hour rainfall rate. You know that could make flash flooding. If you happen to get a flash flood warning, please just avoid driving. That is the best way to stay safe. And then they'll stick with the flood watch, but also the severe thunderstorms again tomorrow from the mid-Atlantic right down through central North Carolina, western, Charlotte included, into northern South Carolina. And I just want to bring this up. You mentioned much drier forecast for Texas. Yes, which is great news. Just some scattered storms tomorrow afternoon, light in nature. But at this moment, Linsey, there's a flash flood emergency in Ruidoso, New Mexico. They have had perpetual flash floods thanks to a burn scar from a fire, and unfortunately they're going through it again tonight.
Oh, don't like to hear that. All right, Ginger, thank you. An emergency call went out the afternoon of July 4th requesting buses to help evacuate campers from Camp Mystic, where, as we know, so many young girls lost their lives. The National Guard was on the scene but had no way to transport the hundreds of girls to safety. That's when buses from the Kerrville Independent School District were called in. We have one of those drivers with us now, Jerry White. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with us. Just walk us through what you experienced on July 4th that afternoon.
The devastation was so bad. And we got up to pick up the girls, and I had older girls, and they came in and they go, "We're all good now, we're safe." And then they started singing Christian songs.
Just broke out into song.
Yes.
From the mountaintops, praise God. I want my world to know the Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on.
You remember anything that they sang?
Amazing Grace and some other ones.
About how old were they?
15 and 16.
So were they emotional? Were they crying?
Not the ones I had, no.
Okay.
They were helping each other lift up, and it was very comforting.
Did anybody share stories of anguish or anything
No.
they witnessed that was?
No.
Okay. And so then you took them, were their parents immediately
No,
at the
I
location?
took them over to a processing one of the high schools, and they got wristbands on, and they went in and got their names and their pictures taken, and then they got on another bus and went over to where their parents were.
Did you have any sense of the magnitude of what had gone on at Camp Mystic when you picked them up?
No, they didn't share and talk. They just sang.
But you didn't know on your own from the news or?
I'd been watching the news. I knew it was bad out there. I didn't know it was that bad.
You didn't know about the loss of life?
I knew there was some they couldn't find.
Give us a sense, being in this community, what you're hearing from your friends, your neighbors, your family.
They're just can't believe it was as bad as it is. And so many people have lost their lives.
We're certainly happy to hear that the girls were lifted up to
Mine
sing.
were.
And
there were some other buses that had younger kids that were crying.
Okay. All right, well, Jerry White, we thank you so much for sharing your story and experience with us. We really appreciate it.
Just keep Kirby on your prayers.
We certainly will. We'll do just that. Thank you. So much heroism among the heartache here in Texas. And for now, I want to hand it over to our Stephanie Ramos in the studio with the rest of the day's headlines. Stephanie.
So many heartbreaking stories there in Kerrville. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Here in New York, we are following the latest out of Washington. At the White House, President Trump with harsh words for Vladimir Putin, saying he is not happy with the Russian leader. The president announced he is resuming weapons shipments to Ukraine. And with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sitting by his side, the president insisted he does not know who suspended those shipments in the first place. Here's senior political correspondent Rachel Scott.
Tonight, after announcing the U.S. will resume weapons shipments to Ukraine, President Trump, who has long praised Vladimir Putin, now lashing out at the Russian president.
We get a lot of thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Trump's efforts to broker a peace deal have come up short as Russia escalates its attacks. Then last week, the Pentagon paused weapons shipments to Ukraine, raising new questions about America's intentions. Today, with the head of the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, sitting right next to him, the president insisting he doesn't know who ordered that pause.
Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Rachel Scott there questioning the president, and she joins us now. Rachel, that was quite the shift, both in terms of sending weapons to Ukraine and the president's opinion of Putin. Did he expand on what caused this shift?
Well, the president in recent weeks, Stephanie, has made it clear that he is disappointed with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two spoke by phone just a few days ago, and the president walked away from that conversation saying that he wasn't happy. He didn't necessarily feel that Putin was dedicated to actually ending the war with Ukraine. And remember, on the campaign trail, the president repeatedly promised that he could end this war within 24 hours. Now, here we are about 6 months later, and that still has not happened. And even more so, in a shift in tone now, the president says that he's strongly considering additional sanctions on Russia. Stephanie?
All right, Rachel, thank you. The Trump administration is ending deportation protections for Hondurans and Nicaraguans in 60 days. It applies to migrants who came through the Temporary Protected Status Program. TPS is intended to protect migrants from deportation if their home countries are facing natural catastrophes. Nepali protections were ended last month. The lives of more than 60,000 immigrants could be impacted. A lawsuit has been filed to challenge the termination of protections. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to move forward with large-scale federal layoffs. The decision marks another victory for the president, allowing the government to begin restructuring agencies and departments, which could possibly affect thousands of federal workers. Let's bring in senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer for more on this. Devin, great to see you. So how is the court explaining this decision?
Well, it was a very brief, unsigned order, Stephanie, but what the court essentially said was that President Trump's executive order issued back in February directing his administration to eliminate and consolidate 21 federal agencies and departments was likely lawful, and along with it, preparations for mass layoffs, potentially up to the tens of thousands. Now, that order by the president had been challenged by unions, nonprofit groups, local governments. They said it was unconstitutional, that only Congress can approve the restructuring of the federal government. But this was an 8-1 decision, essentially again saying, Stephanie, that the order itself to begin planning to restructure the entire federal government is okay. But the court was careful to say they take no position on the actual plans and the actual elimination of departments and employees. So legal challenges could still come, Steph.
And does this mean that we can expect even more mass layoffs of federal workers?
Well, it certainly means tens of thousands of federal workers are on the chopping block in places like federal health agencies, national parks, IRS auditors, environmental regulators. All of those are jobs that the Trump administration has wanted to cut back on. It's not clear how soon that could happen, but I got to tell you, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the sole dissenter, blasted her colleagues here, Stephanie, saying she would have kept the status quo while this litigation continues. And tonight, I'm told, Stephanie, by the groups challenging President Trump's order, that they will continue this legal fight, even though the president can now move forward, Steph.
And Justice Jackson there breaking, even with the other two liberal justices.
Sure
Another
did.
victory for Trump at the court there. Devin Dwyer for us tonight. Thank you so much, Devin.
You bet.
Now to a major change for some air travelers across the country. The TSA says it will allow passengers at certain airports to keep their shoes on when they go through security. Could this lead to a national rollout? Our Gio Benitez has the story.
Tonight, a big change at American airports. The TSA saying effective immediately, all passengers, not just those with pre-check, will be able to keep their shoes on through security, something we haven't seen in nearly 20 years after that attempted shoe bombing and in the wake of 9/11.
We anticipate that Americans and travelers and those coming into our country will be very excited that they will no longer have to remove their shoes.
The so-called shoe bomber, Richard Reed, tried to blow up a flight from Paris to Miami in 2001. The explosives packed in his shoes failed to detonate, and Reed was tackled by passengers and crew.
Right, going to put that up here.
Since then, the TSA has added multiple layers of security, including data on millions of Americans. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem insists flights will be just as secure.
Since that policy was put in place, our security technology has changed dramatically. It's evolved.
Hard to believe it's been 20 years. Gio joins us now. Gio, are there any instances when travelers would have to take their shoes off?
Absolutely. So this is the caveat. If that alarm in the scanner is somehow triggered, so if you have maybe a medical device, or if you just get picked at random for a screening, for that special screening, then in that case you will have to take your shoes off. But no doubt about it, I think a lot of people will be looking at this and saying, well, you'll be able to get through security a lot faster now. Stephanie.
All right, we hope so. Thank you so much, Gio. New details as police investigate the death of popular soccer player Diogo Jota. Spanish officials believe the 28-year-old may have been driving over the speed limit when he and his younger brother, Andre Filippo, died in a car crash. The Lamborghini veered off after a tire burst. Police say marks left by the tires and all other evidence so far suggests the Portuguese athlete was speeding, but the investigation is not yet final. Authorities are investigating the death of an American tourist in St. Lucia. Travis Wyant was reported missing after not making a flight. A missing persons report was filed with the U.S. Embassy, and his sister said in a Facebook post that he was last seen leaving his hotel room Sunday. Police say his body was found this morning near the water in Rodney Bay. Authorities have not yet revealed a possible cause of death or whether foul play was involved. A drone photographer captured a paddleboarder's close encounter with a couple of sharks. Watch as the close call happened this morning near Dunedin, Florida. Take a look. Watch closely. So this drone footage was captured in an area called Shark Alley. The drone operator said water was shallow, just about knee deep, and this comes just days after there was a shark bite incident at New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Same state. Coming up, we're learning more about what officials have described as an ambush on an ICE detention facility in Texas Friday night. Officials giving details now on how many people were involved and their alleged motives. And back to Texas, they volunteer using their own boats and supplies, primarily in the South, to help rescue people from storms, floods, and other natural disasters. Linsey Davis spent time today with some remarkable people from the Cajun Navy.
As you'll hear, it's very dangerous. Heartfelt. Everybody's out here doing the best they can.
Welcome back, everyone, to this special edition of Prime here in Kerr County, Texas. The crews on the ground here in Hill Country are relying on volunteers from all over the country, even the world. And tonight, the State Department is expressing gratitude to Mexico for helping with the flood recovery efforts, saying we are thankful to our regional partners, including our friends and neighbors in Mexico, who generously have sent brave firefighters and members of their civil protection water rescue teams to support the search and rescue efforts in Kerrville, Texas. Another big part of the search effort, the Cajun Navy, no stranger to disasters, and we got a chance to spend part of this afternoon with their team of volunteers as they do the difficult, painstaking work of trying to find the bodies of the missing.
As you'll hear, it's very dangerous. Heartfelt. Everybody's out here doing the best they can, but it is physically Texas heat, yes, Texas sun.
When disaster strikes, the United Cajun Navy answers the call, no matter how difficult. I know you've been doing this for a long time.
Since 2009, yes,
but
ma'am.
I can't personally imagine us coming upon a corpse. How do you cope with that?
As I said, again, you do, and then right away I do the Serenity Prayer, Lord's Prayer, Hail Mary. I am Catholic. And then we have to go out.
Yeah, distance yourself a little.
Right, yes.
The Louisiana-based volunteer group has pitched in during emergencies across the country since Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The flooding catastrophe here in Texas is no different. Beth Remick and her team have been out here in the sweltering Texas heat for days. They found 2 bodies so far, the Cajun Navy recovering 11 overall.
Tony, you going far right? And then Brad, can you stay in the center while we walk this way?
It's grueling but critically important work, searching for the dozens still missing, including the young girl swept away from Camp Mystic.
And then what we do is you got your dog, visual, verbal cue. He sees the ball, and then you go.
So they follow your hand cues.
We've got hand. That's a Susar. You have directionals. Kovu. And then this is what we're watching. He's going to watch him. I'm going to watch him. And we're going to see what they do.
Suddenly, the canines start racing to one area.
And this is what it is. We did not get an alert. You can see what it is. It's a poor dead mouse.
Okay.
So we don't get the alert. They're proof off of other things, only human decom. They went and looked at it and they said, oh, poor baby. This is the part that gets crazy. He kind of came over here. We're thinking we're going to go this way. You can see it's bending on us. So I'm trying to talk, keep an eye on him. And then we go, that might be our route.
They continue searching, coming across another scent, but the danger still lingers here.
We got a good strong scent here. We don't want him right here. You can see he's wanting to jump in the water. Look at right there. If you look at that, how fast that's moving. Once he gets in that water, sometimes Tim's better at this. It looks nice and calm here. What's happening 3 feet below, we got to keep him out of that. I hate to call him out of this. That was a good reaction. We're going to mark this, and then their special guys will come back. 80% of the time, if they know they're going to get to it, the dogs are the decomp. They're the scent detectors. The firefighters are the victim locators. So these guys will come back and check.
It's another grueling afternoon out here, even for the dogs.
With the dogs, see how his tongue's kind of looking like a spoon at the bottom? That means he's needing water, and then when you start seeing that red as they're heating up.
The canines and the Cajun Navy provide crucial information for firefighters here.
As you heard, even the other dog is showing interest. We're not going to put the dogs in the water. We're going to go back, get them in, cool them off, and then he'll bring his men back to confirm.
With dozens still missing, Beth says her team will stay here for as long as it takes.
We need teams here, so I take the knowledge and bring it back.
Trying to help grieving families begin to have some semblance of closure. Coming up, our Stephanie Ramos takes a look at ways that people can prepare and keep themselves safe from flood zones to tornado zones. And later, the State Department's investigation of an unknown actor who used AI to impersonate Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Welcome back. We're continuing to cover the deadly flooding in Texas as the victims of the flood are mourned in the community and nationwide, and rescue crews continue to search for those still missing. This tragedy has also emphasized just how dangerous and possibly deadly flooding can be. According to NOAA, flooding is the second leading cause of weather-related deaths in the country after heat. We'll have more in a moment on the best ways that people can prepare and keep themselves safe. But first, let's look at flooding in the U.S. by the numbers. The National Weather Service says 145 people died because of flooding last year. That's just above the 10-year average of 113 flood deaths per year. The National Weather Service says driving or walking through floodwaters is particularly dangerous, reporting that more than 50% of flood-related deaths are vehicle-related. The service says that just 6 inches of water can make it difficult to control a vehicle, and 18 to 24 inches of water is enough to sweep away even larger vehicles. Flooding can also be costly in other ways. There were 45 flooding events between 1980 and 2024 that cost at least $1 billion each in damages, and that's according to the National Centers for Environmental Information. Those flooding events had an average cost estimated at $4.5 billion. Coming up, more on how to keep you and your family safe. Natural disaster and travel preparedness expert will be joining us here shortly. And also coming up, one of the stars of the hit Netflix documentary Tiger King, sentenced to prison. We'll tell you why. And Dexter is coming back. Remember Dexter? Our conversation with Michael C. Hall about returning to the role in Dexter Resurrection. It's all coming up. We're tracking several headlines around the world. In Spain, a man was gored and 7 others were injured during the second day of Pamplona's San Fermin Festival, a centuries-old tradition known for its running of the bulls. You see it there. Every day, fighting bulls are released into the streets to then chase aficionados toward the bullfighting arena. Participants are occasionally gored and injured, and at least 16 runners have lost their lives at the festival over the years. In Athens, authorities closed the Acropolis for several hours today as extreme heat swept across Greece. Mandatory work breaks from 1 to 5 p.m. remain in effect in parts of the country where temperatures have soared above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And in France, all flights were suspended in and out of Marseille due to a fast-spreading wildfire that broke out near the city. Hundreds of firefighters have been deployed to respond to the emergency. Marseille is France's second biggest city and a hub for tourism in Europe at this time of year. The Swiss drug maker Novartis received approval in Switzerland for the first drug to treat malaria in babies and young children. 8 African countries that participated in the trials are now expected to issue quick approvals for the treatment. The drug will be distributed on a largely non-for-profit basis, and that's according to Novartis. The State Department is warning diplomats beware of someone using AI to impersonate Secretary of State Marco Rubio. A star from the hit Netflix series Tiger King is sentenced to time in prison for animal trafficking, and the fast-thinking surfer who used his surfboard's leash as a tourniquet. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
The State Department is investigating several instances where an unknown actor used AI to impersonate Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The sender created text and voice messages and sent them to prominent figures via the Signal app. The apparent impersonator made contact with at least 5 individuals, including 3 foreign ministers, a U.S. governor, and a U.S. lawmaker. A judge ordered the convicted murderer of Laken Riley to undergo a mental health evaluation. The nursing student was found dead last February after going for a jog on the University of Georgia Athens campus. Jose Ibarra, a Venezuelan immigrant in the country illegally, was found guilty of Riley's murder in November and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The new evaluation will examine if Ibarra was capable of understanding the nature and object of his pretrial proceedings when he waived his right to a jury trial. It will also determine if he's capable of understanding his appeal and his ability to assist his attorneys. A star of the hit Netflix documentary Tiger King was sentenced to a year in prison for animal trafficking and money laundering. Bhagavan Antal, otherwise known as Doc, pleaded guilty to charges after prosecutors presented evidence that he bought and sold exotic animals like cheetahs, lions, tigers, and chimpanzees without proper documentation. 2 of his employees had already pleaded guilty for their involvement in the scheme. 10 people were arrested after an Alvarado, Texas police officer was shot in the neck while responding to a vandalism call at a local ICE detention facility. According to court documents, a group of 10 to 12 people showed up outside the facility on July 4th, launched fireworks at the building, and vandalized cars and a guard structure in an attempt to lure ICE correction officers outside. According to a U.S. attorney, the incident was a planned ambush with the intent to kill those officers. The Indiana Pacers confirmed Monday that star point guard Tyrese Halliburton will miss all of next season after surgery to repair a torn Achilles tendon. Halliburton was injured in Game 7 of the NBA Finals last month after playing through a calf strain. The 2-time All-Star left the court as the Oklahoma City Thunder went on to win the game and their first title in franchise history. A man who was attacked by a shark while surfing at a Florida beach known as the shark bite capital of the world is sharing harrowing details of his survival.
I just felt it chomp down on my arm, felt like a bear trap.
Matt Bender was in shallow water when the shark bit him. He quickly used the leash on his surfboard as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding before racing back to shore. Bender's arm is recovering, and he says he hopes to get back out on the waves as soon as possible.
It is time tonight for the latest in our series, Streamlined, where we bring you the biggest films and TV series hitting screens worldwide, speaking with some of the actors and creators behind them. Dexter lives another day. In Dexter Resurrection from Paramount Plus with Showtime, actor Michael C. Hall returns as America's favorite vigilante in the latest spinoff of the hit serial killer series, Dexter. But when Dexter Morgan wakes up from a 10-week coma, he continues to battle his strongest foes yet, his past and fatherhood. Take a look.
You have to go through hell to achieve resurrection. Hallelujah.
Dexter, it's like seeing a ghost.
Joining us now is the star of the series, Golden Globe winner Michael C. Hall. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Dexter's back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So when we last saw Dexter, he was done. He had been shot. We thought it was over for him. What was your reaction when you heard that he was being brought back?
Well, to be honest, it came at least largely from me. I had a conversation with a producing director from the show, just reminiscing about what a great time we'd had, and it just flew out of my mouth. What if he didn't die? What if that bullet didn't take him out? Is that crazy? And the next thing I knew, other people were brought into the conversation and ideas were swirling around it. And I think we all became increasingly compelled by the idea that were he not to have been taken out by this bullet, it would give him a sort of second chance at life and maybe allow him to release some of the burden of his past and move forward in a more decisive, streamlined way. And then New York came into the picture, and the next thing we knew, we'd shot another season.
Yeah, in this series, in Dexter Resurrection, the series shifts from Miami to New York City. So how has Dexter navigated the change of scenery?
I think New York sort of reveals itself as the place where Dexter can literally reclaim his identity because he's been technically dead, not from a gunshot wound, but because everybody thought he died in a hurricane back in Miami. He's legally resurrected by Angel Batista, and so he's able to actually be Dexter Morgan again. He's reclaiming his identity, but at the same time, in New York of all places, the place people come to do such a thing, he's redefining himself. He's hiding in plain sight in a new way. I think New York is a great sort of environment for him now because it's hard, angular, and he has a much more sort of steadfast and rigid relationship to his code now. And so it's a place that, I don't know, New York has such a presence as sort of a character in the show.
Mm-hmm. And you've welcomed some newcomers to the franchise, Uma Thurman and Peter Dinklage. How have they added to the show? What's that been like?
They're total pros, icons, amazing actors, amazing presences. It's been incredibly gratifying for us that we're able to attract people of that caliber to join us and come play in this crazy world. But yeah, they're incredible in the season. We have an amazing cast of returning characters from the original show and new characters for this new go-around, so it's been fun.
What do you think keeps fans coming back? I mean, Dexter and its spin-offs have become Showtime's most watched and most acclaimed series, and it has been for many, many years. So what is it about the show?
I think different people like it for different reasons. I think he's resilient, kind of an optimist in a way. The fact that he keeps showing up for life in spite of everything that's happened to him and to the people around him. I mean, people like to see him get the bad guys, and they like to see him get out of jams. He's really good at creating hot water that he then is able to get out of. I don't know. I think we all have our shadow side, not as formidable as Dexter's, but to see a character who's taking unique responsibility in his sort of morally gray way for his shadow side is something appealing to people. And I think the voiceover element, the fact that he's talking to the audience the whole time, creates a sense of intimacy that they have with him that none of the other characters within the landscape of the show enjoy. So they're kind of along the ride with him and or maybe implicated in what he's doing as a result.
Well, thank you so much for popping by. We definitely look forward to the show. Michael C. Hall, the first 2 episodes of Dexter Resurrection premiere this Friday, July 11th on Paramount Plus with Showtime. New episodes will then drop every Friday. And as we've reported, with numbers showing just how dangerous and costly flooding can be, it begs the question of what precautions can help people stay safe. For more on that, we're joined by Cheryl Nelson, a natural disaster and travel preparedness expert. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for anyone in an area at risk of major flooding, whether they live there or are visiting, what are the key things they need to do so they're ready in case of flooding?
First, I want to say my heart goes out to everybody in Texas. I know this has been a horrific situation, and it's something where you think it probably won't ever happen to you. So I think the mindset you have to have now is, yes, it could happen. Know that anywhere it rains, it can flood. It doesn't matter if you are in a FEMA designated flood zone or not. If you get enough rain coming at a high enough rate quickly and it doesn't have anywhere to go, yes, that area can flood and you can be in danger. So still, you have to know your risk. You have to be weather aware, know what the forecast is. And I want to say this at home and also if you are traveling. It's even maybe more important to know the weather when you are traveling, when you are camping, when you're away from home, out on the boat. You got to know what's going on. You got to know what your risk is. Because again, flooding can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be near the coast or along a river.
Absolutely. Staying weather aware is so important. We've heard a lot about NOAA radios the last 24 hours, especially. What are some other items that you recommend people always have in a go bag or in their cars?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because the next part of getting ready is really the 3 P's of preparedness. And so that is plan, protect, and pack. And that pack includes that go bag. So things that you want in the go bag. And I would say have one of these at home, at work, and also in your vehicle. So a lot of us know the basic necessities, right? You got to have non-perishable food. You want to have water, protein bars, some food that you eat. Also flashlights and batteries are going to be super important. Other things that you need, medications, maybe glasses, inventory of your home. Have that in a waterproof bag and also on a flash drive. Now, in your vehicle, there's some other items that you can have, like boots. Keep a pair of rubber boots in your trunk because you never know when you might need those. Also a poncho. And I have this device right here. This is a flashlight, but it also has a glass breaker on the back. So you would just slam this into the window of the vehicle if you were trapped in there. And it has a little seatbelt cutter here on the side. So with that, you could slice the seatbelt or anything else that you need to. It has a strobe light on it to grab attention, also has an alarm. So this device has so many things that's important. Easily keep it in your glove box. And you mentioned a NOAA weather radio. I can't stress this enough. This is portable. You can bring it with you. It's battery powered. You can plug it in, or you could crank power it. And this also has a strobe light. It can charge your devices. And remember, NOAA weather radios operate on a different frequency than your cell phones do. So if you're in an area without cell phone coverage, this might give you that warning that you may not have gotten otherwise.
That's really solid advice. You know, there's been a lot of focus after these horrific floods in Texas about the warnings people in the area received ahead of time. So what can people do to make sure they're getting all the National Weather Service alerts and information that they need?
Have multiple ways to receive warning notifications and alerts from the National Weather Service. So NOAA weather radio is one. I have several of these in my house. I've got the portable one. I've got the one plugged in. I've got one in my car. Yes, I'm a weather nerd, but they're super important. And then your cell phone. Your cell phone. Make sure you have your wireless emergency alerts on your phone. And when you go to bed, a lot of people do this. They put their phone downstairs and they forget about it and it's away from them. If you don't have a NOAA weather radio in your bedroom or your cell phone, how are you going to get that warning notification? So again, sometimes these flash flood warnings, sometimes these thunderstorms pop up like that, and you get one of these warnings and you maybe weren't expecting it per se. It's always a good idea to have multiple ways to wake you up, because what happened in Texas is devastating. And I think the worst part about it is it happened under the cover of darkness in the middle of the night. And it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because if you didn't have cell phone signal and you didn't have a NOAA weather radio, you get this alert in the middle of the night and it was a flash flood emergency. What are you going to do? How do they know what to do? You have to be prepared. You have to have a family communicated plan no matter where you are.
Absolutely. Just a devastating situation there in Kerrville, Texas. Cheryl, thank you so much for those tips. Really solid advice there. Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to check back in with Linsey Davis in Texas. Linsey, you are seeing some really beautiful examples of community there tonight.
Finally tonight from here in Hill Country, the sheer scope of it all, even when you're here, is hard to comprehend. For 2 days now, we've traveled through the communities that dot the river here. The strength of the people is simply remarkable, and we are thinking about that dad tonight, Thad Hartfield, who was pouring his heart into searching for his son while at the same time helping others through their own pain. We've seen with our own eyes items that torrent of floodwater took miles away at Thad's home, that pillow from a summer camp 10 miles away, and the haunting images, of course, of those little shoes, sandals, flip-flops, behind each of them a story and a family's anguish. Our hearts and our prayers are with them, such kind and generous souls here. That is all from our team in Hill Country tonight. From Kerrville, Texas, I'm Linsey Davis.
And I'm Stephanie Ramos here in New York. On behalf of all of us, have a good night.